In this next section, we're going to slide into the old way of looking at, thinking about, diagnosing, and treating weight loss, let's call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, gosh, when we were preparing for this, I almost spent so much time just figuring out what I wasn't going to talk about because there's so much to talk about. I think we've really distilled it down to 3 main points here. Old way, number 1, is the myth that you and I built our careers around, which is all calories are created equal.
Right.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, this just simply isn't true. It goes back to understanding the biochemistry, understanding the types and quality of food that raise your blood sugar, which raise your insulin, and insulin is our fat burning or fat storing hormone. You cannot tell me that eating an Oreo and eating a stalk of broccoli that are the same amount of calories, they're going to have different metabolic, different hormonal responses in our bodies. So that, that is the basis.
The fact that this is still a discussion blows my mind. And there are some really, really smart people out there who still are blind to this, that you can just outrun your mouth.
Yeah.
And that this is just a math problem, calories in, calories out, as long as I don't eat more than I'm outputting. That's one variable in a very, 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 it's an oversimplification. There's some math in the equation, but it's a far more biochemistry problem and a hormone balance problem than it is mathematics.
Yes.
And so this is a real challenge because it leads to a one-size-fits-all, eat less, exercise more. The universal advice for every single person on the planet is, well, stop eating so much and start exercising.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's really useful. Old way challenge number 2 is that it places the focus, and as I call it, the religion, on what you should be eating.
Right.
And full disclosure, full transparency, you and I, in our early weight loss days, we had some religion around this.
We did.
And I don't know that we were ever dogmatic, but we had a very clear religious bias. And what we can say unequivocally at this point is that although what you are eating is very, very important, as practitioners in this space, I have no doubt that anything is more important than when you eat.
When, yes.
This is a when we should be eating, and we have all been debating, and we will continue to debate what? Till the cows come home. It's what, and we're going to fist fight, and it's another diet, and another fad, and another fizzle. And very few people are asking a higher level question, which, we can talk about what to eat when it's time to eat, but a higher order question is, when should we be eating? And a lot of this it's the convergence of several things. I think it's the 60s and 70s bodybuilding, Venice Beach, leading into bro science, leading into mass agriculture, selling snacks, and this idea that we need to eat every 2 to 3 hours as humans, which is completely nonsensical. Humans in the history of humanity have never eaten any more than once a day, if you're lucky, prior to 1900. Like, we just need to take a second and think about this for a second. We're not designed to live in all of this abundance. And what we're talking about is diseases of abundance.
Right.
Hello. Like, once you see it, it's impossible to unsee it. Old way number 3 is that we have begun to what I call normalize disease. And this is a real challenge for me, and I don't speak about this a lot. You and I do, offline. But it really weighs on me. And I don't know exactly how the best way to approach this might be. And I understand the origin of this is we need to be kinder. We just need to be nicer to other humans. And one of the things that I'm noticing is that we are potentially, in an effort to be inclusive and loving and supportive, rather than telling the truth about something, because that is hard, we're normalizing it. You're just big boned. Or like, you're beautiful the way you are. And this really isn't a question about beauty. It's not a question of worth or value. This is a question of all progress begins with telling the truth. And we're not being truthful about people who have a disease called obesity. And so people know, obesity was first diagnosed, I had to verify my dates here, by the National Institutes of Health in 1998, classified obesity as a disease.
I do remember that, yeah.
And in 2008, the Obesity Society reproclaimed it a disease. Obesity is a disease. By the time you have a BMI greater than 30, you are in a disease state.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot continue to pander for the sake of not hurting feelings, being honest.
Yeah.
We can do it in a kind way, and we should do it in a kind way, and we should also give resources and encouragement and help to people who are struggling. But we can't lie and expect progress to take place. Borderline. At the sake of me ranting and completely going off rail here, can you refresh folks' minds about the borderline diagnosis and why that is so dangerous?
Yeah. Well, I think it fuels a lot of what we already talked about with this kind of miscommunication of how to fix things. Borderline is mediocrity. It's kind of deadly in its own way because it implies that there's not really a problem. We haven't reached a point where we have to do anything yet. Oh, you're borderline obese, you're borderline overweight. No, that's the time when you go on offense and you start to fix it, because these things are reversible. These metabolic diseases and things that we're talking about can be reversed or at least impacted in a positive way. So to say somebody's borderline, I think we're just kind of sweeping it under the carpet.
Well, we're completely, yes. You wake up one day and that day you have a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't have a heart attack that day.
Right.
The heart attack had been, that just didn't happen out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And if all along you were being kind of made to feel everything is okay, status quo, that you're borderline hypertension, you're borderline diabetes, you're borderline overweight, you're borderline, I can tell you as a human, what you hear is, I don't have it.
Yeah. Right.
It would be much more useful to say you have early disease.
Yeah.
You have evidence of early heart disease. You have evidence of early diabetes or mild diabetes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you hear that you don't have it, the human experience is to conserve energy, stay alive, procreate. There's some very basic things. And if you tell me that I'm borderline, what I hear is I don't have to change anything yet.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's very deadly. And we see the consequences of that at scale. It's interesting, as we were preparing for this, I was building out this basic 3-part framework about the myth of calories, the focus and religion being on what to eat instead of when to eat, and then this notion of normalizing disease being really the backbone of the old way of practicing obesity medicine or metabolic disease reversal. And we have kind of have a lot of pride in what we do, and we think we're very front of the pack, forward thinkers, innovators in that sense. And we have applied a lot of these new way that we've created tons of content around. We focus on timing of meals first here.
Yep.
We are on offense from day one, looking for metabolic disease, things that could be underlying, sabotaging one's effort or making the impossible to make any mistakes in treating those. Then we focus on the quality of food and potentially carbohydrate restriction or potentially caloric restriction, or potentially we need to optimize a fitness plan or work on sleep hygiene or alcohol, whatever the thing is. We're a very, very handcrafted obesity weight loss strategists.
Mm-hmm.
But even with that, there have been some breakthroughs in the in this world that have kind of blown our minds, where we now have new tools to kind of take everything we've been doing and blow it out in a good way. And in the next section, we're going to talk about that.